Hello and welcome to this interview that I'm holding today. My name is Sigrid de Kaste. I'm a book writing and marketing specialist with a unique program for coaches and consultants who want to write a book that raises their profile, positions their expertise, and attracts new clients with ease. And today I have with me the wonderful Catherine Palin-Brinkworth. Catherine is excitingly an international speaker, a leadership mentor, and a business strategist. Welcome, Catherine.
Oh, thank you, Sigrid. It's a delight to be with you.
It is so lovely to see you. And I am so looking forward to hearing you have got an immense amount of expertise, both in the area of the leadership mentoring and of course in publics or, in speaking, public speaking, in speaking at events. Predominantly, is it motivational speaking, Catherine? Is that correct? Or how would you describe it?
Sigrid, I really hope it's motivational because it's either motivational or demotivational. So I really want it to be motivational. But I've always been a fairly deep content speaker. So I regard myself as inspirational probably because of some of the challenges I've had to overcome. And I think it's useful to people when I can share how I've overcome them. You know, things like a terminal cancer diagnosis, things like single parenting and running a business or setting up a business, and high-level corporate leadership at a time when women really didn't do that. So some of the things I've had to do, I've figured out how to do them, and I love to help others do that. And I'm particularly passionate about personal leadership, where I can encourage people to take absolute control of their own lives and figure out how to always be in the driver's seat and how to choose where they want to go and enable themselves to get there.
That is fantastic. So yes, personal issues, personal, deep, often very deep layered things that come up for many people uncomfortably. You can speak about them. You have experienced it. So when you are sharing that, Catherine, what sort of areas or what sort of environments are you most often called upon to speak? Is it in the corporate world? I know you have a strong corporate background, or is it, where else is it?
Sigrid, it's a wide range, and I will say that the work I love to do the best is in service industries. I don't have a lot of experience in manufacturing, but anything focused around service or service providing, that was my corporate background, financial services initially. And then as I began to build my business development consultancy, I spread more and more into telecommunications, still the full range of financial services, but also other professional firms I love working with, because all too often they will think that they will be in demand for their technical knowledge, like law or engineering or architecture. And in fact, it's their relationship skills that make their business most effective. It's the way they're able to tap into other people's needs and listen, really listen and drill down, and then find out where the real pain is and then provide the solutions. Because our life solutions, we've learned over the last 12 months, they don't come out of textbooks that were written a long time ago. Yeah. They need to be thought through in the moment. So connecting with your teams, helping your people to work most productively and to be most engaged when they're remote, all those sorts of things are what I get asked to speak about.
That's really fascinating, Catherine. I've got a question along those lines. So you would be speaking to a whole range of age groups. So when you're in that sector, there would be a lot probably younger sort of generation listening to you. Do you find that they are very keen to hear from your experience, because they really are lacking that perhaps in a lot of being such different structures these days around families and upbringing. And you have got that solid expertise and experience, even from having, from being a single parent, as you said. So do you find they really keen to want to know more, lots of questions?
Sigrid, I think the cold hard truth is that a lot of people, like I am such a passionate learner and I've never stopped. I'm continually hungry for more and more information, ideas, inspiration. And I'm learning Italian, and I've learned the word for learning is imparare.
Oh, wow.
I'm a passionate student of imparare. But I find a lot of people find learning very difficult. And a lot of professional people actually find the humility that's required to learn really challenging, because they've been paid for most of their life, and corporate executives are the same. They've been paid for what they know. And when they're in a position where they don't know, they find it hard to admit that. They think it makes it less than. They think it makes them less than, but it doesn't. It makes them more than.
Yeah.
Because when we're willing to sit there with a half empty cup and say, please help me, give me more,
Yes. Yeah.
then we can be of more and more and more value. So I think it's probably about 20% of audiences are hungry for what they can get, and the other 80% aren't really sure whether they want to get anything or not, and you have to win them over. But in that process, I do find, again, another slice and dice. There are people who simply don't want to hear anything from anyone over 25. And Sigrid, I've been round the sun a lot more number than 25, right?
Yes.
And I often start off by saying, so do you think that if you've been around the sun, like, I don't know, pull a number out of the sky, 55 years, do you think you know more than someone who's been around 25? And we get into a discussion about it, because there are people who've hung around for 55 years who haven't learnt a jolly thing.
Yeah.
They're still stuck where they were. And there are people at 25 who are incredibly hungry and humble and want to learn more. So I think we sort of have to say, all right, you're all a bunch of individuals. I'm an individual. Let's see if I can share anything that's useful at all. And let you see if you can find a missing link somewhere that I might have come across, because I have gone through a fair bit of change in my working life. And we forget then all about what age group I'm in, even what gender I'm in, what industry I've come from. And we just come to that place of, oh, where do I find life difficult? And, oh, I wonder if this person's got any answers.
I can really get this feel from you, Catherine, as you are speaking, the energy that you have and the motivation within that energy that you're bringing to the speaking just now, right this moment. So I can imagine when you are engaged to be a speaker, that people immediately know that you are the right person to come in and give them a lot of depth to whatever the topic is at the time. So that brings me to asking, is it a particular topic or a theme of a topic that you are using, or do you change it completely to each situation?
Great question. So I think when I first started, and I was asked by a friend when I started my business 32 years ago, my background had been in developing sales teams and marketing. Mm-hmm. And of course, what I know now about marketing would fit into this much of a big cup, because it's all changed so much, and I rely on experts like you. But back then, it was very much, how do you sell authentically and honorably and respectfully, and manage to get people to want you to do that? And then as the first few years went by and I was moving into more and more leadership roles, people were saying, well, that's a novelty. A woman is a leader. Oh, gosh, that's real, right? So I got asked to speak on leadership more and more. And that's where it went in my expertise, was leading change, leading teams, leading growth, the whole realm of neuroscience and how our brain works and how that needs to be understood and used for the best possible influence, because the definition of leadership for me is the ability to imagine, inspire, influence, and implement effective change. And if you can grasp those 4 requirements and develop expertise and confidence in them through practice and with your people, and never pretend to have all the answers, because whatever you knew for today is great for today, but tomorrow's going to be a whole different world. So we've got to stay learning.
Yeah.
And that's why imagining is so important, because we don't have all the answers. But I love that concept of looking for leadership and trying to encourage others to feel confident enough to say, I don't have a clue. Let's have a go at looking.
And I think that's, I mean, that is a hugely important topic. So you've given me quite a number of things to ask about. So the leadership question, and particularly around women and what's going on there. I mean, we have at the moment something going on in our society. We don't want to necessarily touch on that. It's a bit political as well, but it's certainly, even after all these years of women stepping up into areas that were not done, like you're saying, getting into that whole area of leadership, it's still lacking a lot, isn't it? Is it, from your perspective, is it lacking more the drive from the women, that they don't really want to, or is it really there are big barriers in front of them that are really hard to get over? What do you think is there still this day?
Oh, big question. I think there's 3 primary answers, so I'll try to be as simple as I can with it. I think there are definitely organizations, structures, some commercial, some not, that are still totally unaware of their, well, it has to be an unconscious bias. They're very comfortable with their, and I'm going to say blokey, but I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's their blokey way of doing things. It's just the way they've always been. And, we've always been the way we've always been. It's a comfort zone. And human beings like to keep doing things the same way if they can get away with it.
Comfortable, yes.
So, yeah, I think there definitely are organizations, structures, systems that are resistant to change. Then I think that there's another challenge where I've never been in favor, and sometimes people want to throw things at me for this. So I'm sorry if people throw things at the screen and do terrible things to us, Sigrid, or to me anyway. But I think too many women want to run and hide in women's groups. Because women's groups, although I love speaking with them and playing with them, women's groups don't mirror the real world. We are a society of at least 2 genders and quite a few others. So we need to learn to be what people need us to be, if that's the market we choose to go after, and to speak in their language, whether they are male, female, whether they are transgender, whether they are very rigid in their style or totally flexible. We need to learn the skills that it takes to communicate with our chosen target market. And I think you're very good at that.
Thank you. Yes, that is a huge component of how I look at the world, and of course in what I do with clients around the whole book writing. You've got to focus on who your reader is, in my case, or when I am out there and connecting with people, the focus is on who the person is and what, you know, what they bring from their end, from their culture, from their upbringing, because it's always interesting to hear what others have, and everything is important, you know, like you're saying, everything is important. That's a really great view to have, Catherine. I can imagine that that serves you really well. Let's talk about the speaking. You are an excellent speaker. You are getting speaking engagements. You are part of the Speakers Association, even the World Speakers Organization. And forgive me if I'm not giving it the right title. I'm not in that field. Tell us about what is that like and how did you get into it?
Thank you. So yes, there is an Australian Association for Professional Speakers, and it's called PSA, Professional Speakers Australia. And it is for people who already are earning, being paid for their work on traditionally the stage, the platform, or the training room. And now, of course, on this kind of platform. We've been doing that a lot for the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And in 14 countries around the world so far, there are professional speaking associations.
Wow.
And we come together under the Global Speakers Federation banner.
Right.
And I started speaking professionally in 1988. Yes, I'm nearly 100 years old, not quite. And I was asked if I would speak at a conference by a friend, and he asked me what my fee was, and I went, "Ooh, my fee, gosh." And I asked advice from a friend about that, and we worked that out, and it went on from there.
Wow.
And so back in those days, it was conferences, it was workshops, it was seminars. And as I said, it was sales or marketing, and it was leadership. And if you're good at what you do and you love it, because I think that love comes out of you, then people do recommend you and refer you, etc. And I used to write a lot of articles, and I had a book launched back in the 90s, and that got me a lot of work. And then I had my first diagnosis of lymphoma.
Oh.
And at least the good part of that was it brought me, I used to love living in Sydney, but I moved to the Gold Coast, and this is heaven on earth. Well, everywhere I think that I've ever lived has been pretty gorgeous. But I moved up here and I started to work a lot more with small business and with associations. And I love that too, because to help small businesses go to the next level, and that might be in a much smaller environment, but it's just as enriching. I've just loved. So I've become a whole lot more holistic in my business approach. But still, if we don't have clear leadership about what we want to achieve, about where we're going, about what our vision is like, if we don't have that clear what and why in our framework, we miss a lot of opportunities and we make life difficult for ourselves. And I've done that, so I know.
Yeah, our own stumbling block, aren't we, in those scenarios? So that's excellent. So you've just touched on a couple of things there. The speaking and the book. Now you've got another book, a new book coming out. Tell us about your upcoming. What is success?
You can see, I'm so excited. So in fact, this is a development, an expansion, an enhancement of the very first book I did. And I had participated in many others after that. But this one I had been promising people for ages that I would redo.
Okay.
And every year I would have to put a cross beside my goal and say, no, I didn't achieve that. I didn't redo that book. And finally, at the beginning of 2020, or around about April, I think, I went, oh, if I had redone that book, even last year, it would not have been the right time. Because what is success is very relevant to the year that we've just had
Yes,
with
yes.
COVID.
And it's a very different experience, isn't it? That we
Isn't it?
Mm.
And whatever I might have defined as my success, and I know I'm not Robinson Crusoe, I know there's been a lot of people worldwide who've gone through this. Somehow the new car doesn't matter as much. Somehow the large home isn't as important. I can tell you, you know, like the 3 wardrobes full of clothes and the 200 pairs of shoes. No, I'm exaggerating,
Yeah,
a
the shoes
but only a little bit.
and the handbags.
They don't matter. What matters is the people I love,
Yeah,
and the service I can provide, and whether or not I'm healthy. And so I think we have rediscovered what success really is. But it's not for me to prescribe that. I think every single one of us is entitled to have our own version of success. And all I want to do is help people really define their principles and their processes and say, you know, this is the way I want to do it. And nobody has any right to tell us what our success should be. I mean, I just don't believe in shoulds. I think there's someone else's agenda always, and they are controlling. And we need to be free enough to say, you know, I love living in a tiny little place in the middle of a busy city. And maybe it isn't anyone else's idea of success, but it's mine. And that's where we need to get to, where we are completely congruent and aligned with that sense of joy within ourselves that doesn't put pressure on us, that doesn't say you should be doing this or you're not good enough. If, like, we've got this epidemic of inadequacy, Sigrid.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe you've never had it, but I keep going, I'm not good enough.
I think everybody, doesn't matter who they are, have got that somewhere on the inside. It's either a little voice or, you know, something pops up, and a lot of people don't admit it. A lot of people, it comes up at the most inopportune time. So it's definitely something that is there. And I love that you are talking about success, that you are giving us in written form how we can choose our own version of success. I think that's excellent. So you've touched on the online arena. I just want to come back to that briefly. So you were thrown into this melting pot of do everything online. You've obviously succeeded very well. I think most people have, because when you're passionate about something and when you know your topic well and your area of expertise, where it doesn't really matter when a new medium comes up, does it? You just jump into it.
I think one of the things that I realized, and it was similar when I realized I was in the right place to redo the book, was that I needed to look at my motive for doing it. So if my motive for going online and speaking at seminars and events, etc., if my motive is to be approved of, to be admired, to be held on a pedestal somewhere, I wouldn't have the courage to do it. I just wouldn't. I would be putting it off and making excuses. And I can tell you I've been through those stages over the years. And I had a friend say to me, why do you think you haven't done the book? And I said, I don't know. And she said, do you think it might be because you're afraid no one will buy it?
Right.
And I went, oh, yes, maybe that's it. Maybe. And then I had to stop and think, you know, what if nobody wants my book? Well, you know what? I've done it because I wanted to do it, and I've done it because I thought it might help some people, and I've done it because that's, as I think I suggested to you, I'm leaving my legacy, or one of the legacies, and if no one buys it, that's okay. And yes, we've been told as speakers over the years, you must have a book. Well, my warning on that one is don't have a book for the sake of having a book. You've got to have a good book, or it's going to make you look not good enough, even if you are.
I love that. I love that you have that attitude there, that you have that, that suggestion there, because the types of people or the types of books that I see people are writing often are written without any purpose or outcome in mind. Purpose, yes, they have a purpose, and I'll come back to the legacy that you've said that to me before, and I love it. So yes, of course, legacy is part of it. Often people will just write for the sake of writing and to say, I am the author of, I have a book, but they're not putting enough thought into what they're actually going to be able to do with it. And if they're choosing a topic, and particularly a title that doesn't resonate with what they're speaking about, there's a huge disconnect, and they don't even realize that. And unfortunately, if that is not done at the beginning, by the end, it's really hard to change that once you've got it all published and printed, isn't it? It's impossible almost. Yeah.
It's like coming up with some kind of product that nobody wants, that doesn't have the value that people need it to have. And from what I've seen of the work you're doing with authors, you're really helping people over those first hurdles, which is fabulous. Like who's going to read it, and why will they want to read it, and what problem are you solving, and what does that cost them? And, for me, it's around CPB as my initials, clarity, purpose, and belief. And if I can guide people through those three challenges, and the belief one's the tough one for me, then it's useful. Right. And it's different for everybody. There's no one right way, but the one right principle is making sure that everything is aligned and that you are working with one brand, and that everything you say and deliver comes through the communication that you use on your website and on your business cards and when you're talking like this.
Absolutely. So I can certainly see how what is success is something that you have talked about, spoken about, shared with people in your entire time of being in business, time of having been able to speak at events and so on. So I would love to leave our listeners and viewers with a little bit more about the book and where they can get it. Is it ready yet? Or when it is ready, we will put the link to get it below the video so people can go and buy it.
So this is the most exciting thing. So I have a sample copy. It's been published by a division of Hay House in the United States. And I'm calling it an airport book because it's very easy to read. I have one copy. There are more copies coming to me across the sea, but I have discovered only yesterday that it is already up and available on Amazon.
Oh, lovely.
Probably on Barnes & Noble. It is available in both Kindle format and hard copy. We are going to be doing a launch in Brisbane.
Oh, wow.
And I will definitely let you know about that because it will be a party. And I have somebody very special who's going to come and launch it for me. So we'll be celebrating that in a couple of weeks, I think. But yes, anyone who wants to just go, oh, I'm not waiting for that, I'm going to go on and get it. No, you can.
That is absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to get that link from you and we will put it below so that people can go and have a look at least have a look at it. If they want to wait for the launch, great. Otherwise, away they go to get it. Catherine, you have been a pleasure to share, to let us know your vast experience and expertise and what you have shared with us on leadership. I love it. Thank you so much for your time and sharing that information. I'm looking forward to that book.
Thank you, Sigrid. I'm honored. Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Thank you.